Hello guys, what's up? Got issues. I got the fuel pump mounted. Looks good. It'd work real good, but got to thinking it's just going to be way too close to the header. The header comes right down there. Pokes out quite a bit. So I'm going to tear that apart, see if I can find a different spot. Trying to keep this pump as low as possible. Problem is there's a pre-filter, which is huge. I want to try and keep that low also. So here we go. Well, here's plan B. A little tighter, a little more snug. Looks better, fits better. I wanted to use this flexible joint right here, but it'll be fine. I'm just worried about, how do I put it? A flex joint in between this fixed, and all these, I don't know, I just want it to be not rigid. So it'll be fine. Just right there. But what I'll do is I'll make a bracket, because this will sit kind of at an angle. And then I'll suspend that with rubber. So it will not be rigid. And we'll go with that, and I'll make a mount for this thing, for this other filter. 2 filters, one for heavy stuff before the pump, and then one for fine stuff after the pump. And that'll tuck in there nicely. I'm still going to make a heat shield for this side, but look at and see how it doesn't stick out anymore. So that header goes right down there. So I'll be able to make a nice heat shield. Alright, well, here we go. I might as well show what I'm doing. I don't usually do that. So I'm getting a bracket made to hold down this pump. And this is made a piece of cardboard to fit underneath that thing, and right here is where it'll bolt on. And I just leave it long enough because I know I need some ears to come out here, basically 4 corners to bolt that down, and I'll suspend it with rubber, kind of like this thing that I'm not going to be using anymore. I'm going to go get some smaller ones, and I'll mount one right here, right there, and then on the other side 4 corners. So I need to make a plate underneath that, and then have arms come out and bend them so it will attach to these points. So I just cut a piece of cardboard, stick it underneath there, and kind of get an idea of where I want my bends. This thing's going to bend like that. And then these arms will come down like that. And then bolt on. And this one come down over here. Same thing here. This one will bend like that. This one will bend like that. So I'll square this up, make it square, define these a little better, map that out on a piece of aluminum similar to that, and I'll fire up my new fancy plasma cutter. Maybe I'll show a little bit of that too. I'll get this laid out on a piece of aluminum and set it up. We'll get that cut out, and then it's got to put some bends in it. And I got to go get some of those rubber mounts. Alrighty, we've got this laid out. Measured it out, squared up the edges. Where'd it go? Here it is. So pretty much same thing. Now I get this thing fired up. I don't even really know how to set it up. I don't got no air. Okay, and we need power. So yeah, I don't know how to set it up. I just kind of put the controls in the center. Give it the air pressure it needs. And I just hold this thing here and run it across. I don't know how I will do this. Let me try to set up the camera. So here we go. Let's try that. So I'll just hold this thing. And I got this stick the same distance from the edge to halfway. Just kind of line that up. It does get hot. And the heat transfers pretty quick with aluminum. So yeah, that was getting hot. Only just a couple little spots. I was going too fast maybe, but it didn't go through. But look how clean that cut is other than that. So I'll take a file, clean that up, and then this edge gets a little bit of blow by. And that'll file right off. And I will finish doing these cuts. And then I'll put a couple bends in there and drill the holes for the pump and set it up underneath there and see where I need to bend these ears, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, let's see how this goes. I got to put a bend in this. It's pretty thick. I don't want to fracture it. So I'm thinking I'm going to put a little heat to it. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens here. Aluminum's pretty weird. When it gets hot, it gets hot. Come on, baby. Well, I was afraid of this. Aluminum is weird. Steel, this would start bending already. I'm afraid of ruining this thing. Yeah, let's just see what happens here. Yeah, that'll probably work. That turned out pretty good, actually. Expecting a little sharper bend. Oh man, the camera fell over. I did get it hot. And I did bend it. No fracturing. Looks pretty damn good. And I put radiuses in these corners here instead of just a square edge. The square edge is a place for it to be weak and fracture. Anyway, let that cool off. And we'll kind of set it in there and see what it looks like. Well, I better stop and show what I'm doing here. Been to the store like 5 times trying to find the right hardware. So I got the tank where it belongs. Pretty critical when you're lining this up. Start off in the right spot. And I got these all tightened up hand tight, so that's kind of in its natural position. And the bracket I made, I've got the pump loosely bolted to the bracket here. And one of these points, I'm going to have to use this ear on the pump as a mounting point. Compared to the other ones, all the other mounting points will be solid. This one's going to be rubber to rubber. And then I'll bend these ears down and mount them the same way I do this one, front and back. I've got the ears over here. Where are we at? Ready to bend. And this only goes in one spot. It's pretty tight right here. You know, this tube here can move this way a little bit, depending on where I mount that thing, to give it clearance back here where my finger is. But then the more clearance I give it here, the tighter it gets it over here. So no clearance here. So there's a sweet spot right in the middle to where I get just enough clearance here and just enough clearance here, and then mount that thing. And like I said, rubber suspended, because this tank is not rigid mounted, so I don't want to mount the pump rigid. Since this is able to kind of vibrate and move around, I want this to be able to vibrate and move around also. And like I said before, cut down the noise just a tad being suspended in rubber. So I'm going to march on. I'll probably put a nut cert in here and bolt that down, and then start bending these ears where I need them to be, one by one, getting that in the right spot. Alright, here's what I got so far. I cut this piece out of here, which makes those ears longer. This part over here is mounted. I'll trim these off in a moment. And next thing I'm doing is this one here. So I'll drill a hole right through there into the frame, where I'll put another one of those grommets. And I got it off the bottom enough to where the bolts don't hit. And then this one here, haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet, because I can't really put one of those nut certs through here. It's pretty thick double walled steel, so I might just come over and then down and then come in through this way for that side. And the reason I'm using the nut certs, let me get out of here, is because I'm using these shouldered bolts, which only tighten up so much. Squish that rubber down just enough to make it rigid, but then it stops tightening after a certain point. And it's going to be good to go, as long as it all fits after I get it in there. There it is, completed version. I screwed up a couple spots. It's not easy getting all those angles. This will sit right there. This will sit right here. Like so. Something like that. So I think I'm ready to get that mounted in there for good. But I just popped all these rivets out of here. Before I put that in there, this is going to go underneath of it. And I had some heat wrap on here. This is a fuel vent line. I got to replace that. This is going to be sucking so much fuel, potentially, that it's going to require a man-sized vent in the fuel tanks. So I kind of had a cheesy vent. There's one on each tank. And the end, look at the end of this, how it's all swelled up and weird. And the rest of it's rock hard. Kind of shrunk. This is swollen up and this is kind of shrunk. Hook's on right here. So I'm going to run a different line, braided fuel line, and I'm going to get a bigger inlet. So each side will have a pretty big vent. I don't know the exact size, but there's the hose I'm going to run. So I'm going to replace that hose with this one and properly secure it and get all this cleaned up, shined up, cleaned up. And then that's kind of that side of it. I still got the other side to go with the regulator. And then I also will have the same vent hose over here, which I'll swap out for the bigger line, bigger nipple, bigger vent. So a few more stages. Well, there, I believe, is the finished product. It's all bolted in. All the lines are fastened. And you can see the clearances are next to nothing. It's pretty tight. Fuel lines go up through here. Same thing, pretty tight. But everything fit just the way I want it. It's pretty tough to get that bracket made to sit in just that exact spot. It couldn't be, you know, a millimeter either way, because these clearances wouldn't work. Right back here, underneath, right here. And then to lay this tube this way to keep it out of the way of the header. Give room for a heat shield. And the exit coming up through there. And it couldn't have come out any better. Next thing I got to do, this fan, there's one on each side. It fits in here. And that'll have to be a little bit different spot because it used to be lower. But I think I will wait. I can do that after everything's all done. I think I'll call it good on this end. And I'll start on the return line with the regulator. And I got to order some new vents. I gotta find some new vents. These are not just a vent, it's an actual fuel shut off in case you tip over. I want to get one that's got a bigger outlet. One for each side. Anyway. Should do it. Still a mess.